The silence before the storm. The galaxy was vast and filled with countless civilizations. Empires ruled with fleets of shining warships. Councils spoke of peace and order, yet behind their words lay arrogance and fear. In this endless sea of stars, Earth was seen as nothing special. A small world, young compared to the great powers, scarred by its own wars, untested in the grand stage of galactic politics. To most, humanity was loud, reckless, and dangerous, but never truly important. Among the older races, there was laughter when Earth's name was mentioned. They called humans death-worlders, survivors of a violent planet, but they never believed that such a people could create anything that mattered to the balance of the galaxy. Whispers of Earth building something great were dismissed as myths. At the Council's grand tables, no one took such rumors seriously. "What can one small planet do?" they said with pride. But rumors have a life of their own. For decades, there were faint reports of a hidden project deep within Earth's orbit. Traders spoke of entire shipyards sealed from outsiders. Spies carried tales of engines larger than cities, of weapons designed to tear continents apart. The galaxy laughed. They said humanity was telling ghost stories to frighten others. No one believed Earth could build what the whispers called the planet killer. The silence of the stars hid the truth. Far from the eyes of the Council, humanity worked in secret. Shipyards carved into asteroids, stations hidden in shadow, scientists who gave their lives to designs no one else dared attempt. Piece by piece, steel by steel, the project grew. Humanity knew the galaxy would never understand. They had seen how empires treated weaker races. They had seen worlds abandoned, promises broken, treaties betrayed. Earth had no desire to be the next forgotten world. So they built in silence, preparing for the day when the galaxy's arrogance would bring war to their door. That day came sooner than anyone expected. It began with a smaller race, the Tyranni, peaceful people, builders and artists who had lived under the shadow of a greater empire. When they called for aid against invasion, the Council ignored them. The Tyranni's cities burned. Their children cried for help, but no fleets came. Only silence answered. The galaxy had turned its back, as it always did to those without power. From Earth, the cries did not go unheard. Humanity watched as another people were abandoned. They remembered their own history. Wars fought alone, betrayals suffered, and the long struggle to survive on a hostile world. Humanity's leaders knew the pattern. If they did nothing, one day it would be their turn. The decision was made. Deep within Earth's hidden shipyards, engines awakened. Massive reactors came alive, shaking the steel around them. Workers who had given their whole lives to secrecy now watched their creation prepare to rise. It was not graceful like the ships of the Council. It was not beautiful like the vessels of the elder races. It was colossal, brutal, and unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The planet-killer warship. It moved from its cradle in silence, its shadow dwarfing the shipyards that had built it. Its hull stretched for kilometers, black as the void, bristling with weapons that glowed with power. Armor thicker than any known ship gleamed in the faint light of the sun. Engines the size of mountains thundered as it turned toward the stars. It was not a vessel of peace. It was a statement. Humanity would never again be ignored. Across the galaxy, sensors began to scream. Deep space observatories picked up the rising shadow. Entire systems paused as warnings spread. Commanders stared at screens, unable to believe what they saw. This was no rumor. This was no myth. The whispers had been true all along. Earth had built a warship that could destroy worlds. Panic spread in the Council chambers. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices filled with fear. How had Earth hidden this for so long? How had one small world created something greater than all their fleets? No answers came. Only dread. Among the empires, fear turned to rage. Some called humanity a threat to all life, demanding immediate action. Others spoke of surrender, their voices shaking with terror. For the first time in centuries, the great powers felt powerless. They had mocked Earth, dismissed it, abandoned it. Now Earth had risen with a weapon that could bring them all to their knees. But Earth did not move toward conquest. The planet killer's first course was not set for the Council's worlds, nor for the homes of the great empires. Its engines burned toward the Tyranni, the people abandoned by the galaxy. Humanity's message carried with the warship was simple: you will not stand alone. The smaller races who had always suffered in silence felt hope for the first time. They watched the shadow rise and whispered, The humans will fight for us. The great empires, who had always believed themselves untouchable, began to tremble. For in the silence before the storm, the galaxy finally understood the truth. Earth was no longer a world to laugh at. Earth was no longer a child among the stars. Humanity had unleashed something the galaxy could not control, and nothing would ever be the same again. The warship revealed. The first time the galaxy saw the warship with clear eyes, silence filled the stars. It was not like any vessel the Council had built. It did not shine with polished armor or flow with elegant curves. It was a giant of steel, forged for one purpose only. Its surface was black, broken by scars of its construction, and lined with weapons so vast they looked like cities built upon a hull. To those who gazed upon it, the ship felt less like a machine and more like a force of nature. The Tyranni, whose worlds lay under siege, were the first to witness its arrival. From their broken cities, survivors looked upward and saw a shadow spreading across the sky. For a heartbeat, fear filled them, for they thought another enemy weapon had come to finish their end. But then the signal reached them. A human voice, rough and steady, spoke into every frequency. "You are not alone. We fight with you." Hope returned like fire. Families clutched each other. Soldiers raised their weapons higher. For weeks they had begged the galaxy for help. Only silence had answered them. Now, from the distant world they had barely known came the promise of salvation. The enemy fleets laughed at first. To them, humanity was reckless, untested, a people from a violent world who had no place in the order of the stars. They believed the planet killer was a bluff, an oversized vessel built to frighten, not to fight. Commanders barked orders to their cruisers and frigates. Destroy it. Show the humans their place. Their fleets advanced. Dozens of ships moved into formation, engines flaring. Their weapons turned toward the black giant. The Tyranni, watching from the ground, held their breath, certain that even this warship could not stand against so many. The galaxy itself waited, eyes fixed on the confrontation. The warship moved slowly, like a predator that did not fear its prey. Then its weapons lit. The first salvo was unlike anything recorded in galactic history. Beams of energy tore through space, slicing enemy cruisers apart in a single breath. Missiles the size of towers launched from hidden bays, crossing the void with unstoppable speed. Entire formations vanished in white fire, their wreckage scattering across the heavens. In moments, what had been an army of ships became silence and smoke. Shock rippled through every system that received the transmissions. For centuries, the great empires had believed themselves untouchable. Their fleets were the standard of power. Their weapons had crushed countless smaller civilizations. Yet in less than an hour, the human warship had erased a fleet that would have broken entire worlds. Panic filled the council chambers. Delegates shouted, some demanding explanations, others calling for sanctions, still others whispering of war. But none could deny what the images showed. Humanity had built a weapon greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and they had not used it for conquest. They had used it to defend those abandoned. The enemy commanders, furious and humiliated, sent more ships. They threw everything they had against the human vessel. Dozens of warships armed with the strongest weapons they owned charged in rage. They fired volleys that could shatter moons. Explosions rained across the void. But when the light cleared, the planet killer remained. Its armor was scorched, its shield strained, but it stood unbroken. Then it answered. A single blast from its central cannon tore through the enemy's flagship, splitting it into pieces that burned as they fell into the atmosphere. The survivors of the Tyranni saw those burning fragments streak across their skies like falling stars. They cheered, voices rising from broken cities. The warship had done what no one else dared. It had stood against power and shown no fear. Word spread faster than fire. Traitors carried the tale to distant systems. Soldiers whispered it in council fleets. The smaller races, long forgotten, felt pride and hope. They spoke of Earth with reverence. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as reckless children, but as something far more dangerous, protectors who fought with the strength of a predator and the heart of a guardian. But with hope came fear. The great empires gathered in secret, their leaders pale with unease. They knew what this meant. If Earth could build one planet killer, perhaps they could build more. No empire, no council, no fleet could survive such power. Humanity had changed the balance of the galaxy in a single day. Yet Earth sent no demands. They claimed no territory, The warship's only message echoed across every frequency. We fight for those left behind. We will not allow silence to be their answer. The council sat in shame, their promises of unity revealed as lies. The empires once proud began to tremble, and in the streets of the Tyranny, children pointed to the night sky and whispered a new name with awe: the planet killer of Earth. The storm had broken, and the galaxy trembled. But humanity's warship had only begun its journey, and its shadow would soon fall across every world that thought itself safe. Humanity's unforgiving might. The warship's first strike had shattered fleets, but it did not rest. Its massive engines burned again, driving it deeper into the contested systems. Everywhere the enemy pressed forward, the warship followed. Where colonies lay under fire, its shadow appeared. Where fleets gathered, its guns roared. For the Tyranny, every appearance was salvation. For the enemy, every signal of its arrival was terror. Human commanders gave no grand speeches to the galaxy. Their orders were simple, almost cold. Defend the weak, destroy those who prey upon them. The planet killer moved like a storm, never slowing, never hesitating. Its weapons carved through battle lines, leaving wreckage that floated across the stars as silent warnings. Yet the most frightening thing was not its strength, it was its resolve. Humanity did not fight for territory or riches. They did not claim worlds or demand tribute. They fought because silence had abandoned the weak, and they refused to be silent. Smaller civilizations, long ignored by the Council, began to call Earth their protector. In hidden channels, leaders whispered of pledges to humanity. "They do not leave us," one governor said. "If they call, we will answer." The great empires heard these whispers with dread. Influence was slipping from their hands, not through politics, but through loyalty won in blood. On the battlefield, the warship revealed horrors the galaxy had never seen. Its main cannon could pierce the shields of entire fleets with a single shot. Its secondary weapons rained destruction across planetside armies, cutting them down before they could touch civilian cities. Drones swarmed from its bays, small but vicious, tearing through fighters and frigates. Every piece of it was a weapon, and every weapon struck with precision. In one system, an enemy fleet had surrounded a defenseless world. They intended to make an example, to show what awaited those who trusted humans. But when the planet killer arrived, it positioned itself between the world and the enemy guns. The enemy fired volley after volley, weapons strong enough to shatter continents. The warship absorbed the storm. Its shields burned red, its armor split, but it did not move. For hours it stood like a wall, holding against destruction that would have wiped the planet clean. When its guns answered, half the enemy fleet ceased to exist. The survivors fled, their voices trembling as they reported to their commanders. "We faced a monster. We faced Earth's wrath. Nothing we threw at them worked." Inside the warship, the crew worked in silence, their faces tired but unbroken. Engineers fought to keep the reactors steady. Soldiers patrolled the decks, ready for boarding that never came. No one spoke of glory. They spoke only of duty. Humanity had not built this vessel for pride. They had built it because they knew the galaxy's cruelty, and they had chosen to stand against it. The Council grew restless. In their hidden halls, debates raged. Some demanded that Earth be punished for daring to wield such power. Others whispered fearfully, "If we provoke them, what if they turn it on us?" Every voice was filled with shame, for they had done nothing while Earth acted. But the greatest shame was this: the galaxy's smaller races had stopped begging the Council for help. They begged humanity instead. For the first time in living memory, the Council was no longer seen as the protector of peace. That title had passed to Earth. The enemy empires could not accept this. They massed their fleets, swearing that they would crush the humans once and for all. They spoke of Earth as arrogant children who had overstepped their place. They promised to tear the warship apart and scatter its remains across the stars. But when battle came, their promises broke. The planet killer did not fight like them. It did not spread its forces thin. It struck with focus, crushing one fleet at a time. It turned asteroids into weapons, used wreckage as shields, and unleashed tactics so brutal and unexpected that commanders were left stunned. Humanity fought not with tradition, but with creativity born from a world where survival had never been easy. To the Tyranny, to the other smaller races, these battles became stories told in awe. Children whispered of the black warship that swallowed fleets. Survivors sang of the humans who stood where no one else would. Even in ruins, hope grew stronger, tied not to promises but to proof. One night, after another victory, the Tyranny envoy asked a human officer why they risked so much for strangers. The officer's reply was quiet but sharp. Because when we needed help, no one came. We swore it would be different for others. That answer spread faster than any cannon blast. It was repeated on every world, carried in every whisper. The galaxy began to understand. Humanity's weapon was not just its warship. It was its will. The enemy still had strength. They still had numbers. But the truth had become clear. They were not fighting one ship. They were fighting the resolve of an entire world. And that resolve was something no empire had ever faced before. The warship moved on, its engines burning, its shadow stretching across the stars. Behind it lay wreckage and silence. Ahead of it, fear. And across the galaxy, one question echoed louder with every passing day. If this was what humanity unleashed for others, what would they unleash if the war came to Earth itself? The galaxy begs for mercy. The galaxy had seen battles before. Empires had clashed for centuries, their fleets burning across the stars. But never had it seen this. One by one, the great powers that once mocked humanity were falling silent. Their fleets were broken, their commanders humiliated, their pride turned to ash. The planet-killer warship moved through their territories like a shadow of judgment, unstoppable and unyielding. At first, they had sworn to destroy it. They had promised to crush the humans, to erase Earth from memory. Now those promises lay in ruins. Reports filled their councils, ships torn apart in seconds, armies scattered before they could even fight, colonies defended by a single warship that no empire could touch. Fear grew like a disease, spreading from soldier to citizen to ruler. Soon the proud voices of the empires began to change. Rage turned to desperation. Desperation turned to pleading. Across hidden channels, messages reached Earth. Voices that had once laughed now shook with fear. We will withdraw. We will stop the invasions. Only call off your warship, but the humans did not stop. The planet killer circled their homeworlds, its engines humming like a predator's breath. It did not fire, but its silence was worse than weapons. Every leader who saw its shadow knew what it meant. Humanity could end them at any moment. One empire sent envoys kneeling in shame. They offered riches, technology, entire star systems. The human response was cold. We do not want your treasures. End your chains. Release those you have enslaved. Tear down the laws that crush the weak. Another empire begged for peace, their fleets already shattered. They promised loyalty, swore oaths of alliance. Humanity's warship hovered over their capital and spoke one sentence. We will not rule you, but you will never again rule with cruelty. The galaxy had never heard demands like this. Victors always claimed worlds, always carved borders, always demanded tribute. Humanity claimed nothing. They left every empire with their lands, their homes, their thrones, but they stripped away their cruelty. They forced them to honor those they had once abandoned. To the smaller races, this was a miracle. They had known only silence and betrayal. Now they saw an iron hand raised not for conquest but for justice. They began to speak openly of Earth as protector, guardian, savior. Their songs changed, their banners changed. In every corner of the galaxy, the symbol of Earth began to appear beside theirs. The Council of Worlds, once the highest voice of order, now sat in shame. They had promised unity, yet abandoned the tyranny and so many others. It was humanity, the outcast, the ignored, who had done what the Council never dared. Delegates argued behind closed doors, some calling Earth a threat, others calling Earth a new hope. But none could change the truth. The galaxy no longer looked to them. It looked to humanity. On the ground, in cities that had once burned, the tyranny rebuilt under the shadow of the planet killer. Children pointed at the sky and whispered stories of the humans who came when no one else would. Soldiers who had once lost hope trained beside human marines, their hands steady, their hearts stronger. A new future began to take shape, carved not by the old powers but by the courage of one world. Yet even as the galaxy bent, humanity showed no triumph. Their commanders did not speak of victory. Their soldiers did not boast. They carried sorrow in their eyes, for they knew how much had been lost. Every battle had cost human lives. Every victory was written in sacrifice. The planet killer itself bore scars across its hull, reminders of those who had fallen to keep others alive. The envoy of the tyranny once asked a human captain why they did not claim their place as rulers. His answer was quiet, almost bitter. We do not want to be rulers. We only want to make sure no one is left in silence again. Those words spread like flame. They became the echo of Earth's presence in the galaxy. Not conquerors, not tyrants, but defenders who demanded mercy from those who had never known the word. Soon even the greatest empire, the one whose pride had begun this war, bent its knee. Its leader, once arrogant, now stood trembling before the human commander. He spoke the words no one thought they would hear. "We beg for mercy." The commander looked at him with eyes like stone. "Mercy is not ours to give. Mercy belongs to those you betrayed. Go to them, ask them for forgiveness. And know this, if you break your word again, the planet killer will rise." The leader bowed, ashamed and broken. The war was over. The galaxy had begged and humanity had listened, not with cruelty, not with conquest, but with terms that forced justice into the stars. For the first time in history, power had been used not to enslave, but to free. And across every world, both small and great, one truth became clear. The galaxy had trembled before humanity, and it would never forget the shadow of Earth's warship. A legacy. Written in fear and respect, the war was finished. Yet the shadow of the planet killer still stretched across the stars. It drifted back toward Earth, scarred but unbroken, its hull marked by the fire of countless battles. Behind it, silence followed. Not the silence of betrayal, but the silence of fear and respect. For every empire that had once mocked humanity now spoke its name in trembling voices. On the Terrani homeworld, rebuilding had begun. Streets once covered in ash now carried laughter again. Children ran through the ruins, pointing to the sky where the warship had once hovered like a shield. Their elders spoke of the day humanity came, the day the silence ended. In their songs, the name of Earth was placed beside their own heroes. The humans had become part of their history, carved not by treaties but by sacrifice. Across the galaxy, rulers bowed their heads when they heard Earth's name. No empire dared provoke them. Fleets that once called humans reckless now studied their tactics in fear. The council that had abandoned the weak now sat in shame, powerless, knowing that its voice no longer carried weight. The galaxy had a new measure of power, not wealth, not numbers, but resolve. But to humanity, this was not triumph. The planet killer's crew did not return to Earth with cheers. They returned with silence. They carried the weight of every comrade who had fallen, every city they had not saved in time, every cry they had answered too late. To them, victory was not glory. It was survival, purchased with blood. The ship was repaired in hidden docks, but it was never again paraded as a weapon. To the humans, it was not a banner to boast of. It was a warning, a reminder of what they were forced to build because the galaxy had chosen silence over mercy. Still, its legend grew. Small races began to paint the image of the warship on their banners. Colonies that had once been prey to empires now sent messages of gratitude, pledging loyalty to Earth. They did not call humans conquerors. They called them guardians. Some even whispered prayers to them as if humanity itself had become something beyond mortal, an unbending force that stood between life and death. Yet humanity rejected worship. When envoys came bearing gifts, Earth's leaders refused gold, jewels, and systems. They demanded only one thing: change. Treat your people with dignity. Free the slaves you have chained. Do not abandon your allies when they call. These were the terms of peace. Not wealth, not power, just justice, and still that justice was feared, because every ruler knew that behind those words stood the warship. The planet killer had become more than steel. It was a legend that haunted the galaxy. Even when it rested in silence, the thought of its engines awakening again kept empires awake at night. Among the smaller races, hope flourished. For the first time in memory, they believed the galaxy could be different. They believed that silence did not have to be the answer to their cries. When they told their children of dark times, they ended the stories with the same words. Then humanity came. The Terrani envoy stood once more before her people. She remembered the first days, when she had begged the council for help and received only silence. Now she looked at her people standing strong, no longer broken. She raised her voice and declared, "The galaxy abandoned us, but humanity chose us. They gave their lives for us. From this day forward, Earth is written into our history, into our hearts. We will never forget." Her words traveled farther than she imagined. They echoed across systems, carried on channels, repeated in whispers and shouts. Earth's choice had become a symbol, a single world that refused to bow. that refused to let silence claim the weak. And so, the galaxy lived in a new era. An era where humanity was no longer dismissed as reckless or small. An era where the shadow of a single warship shaped the choices of empires. Some feared them. Some loved them, but none ignored them. The planet killer remained in its hidden dock, engines quiet, weapons cold. It did not need to rise again to remind the galaxy of its power. Its legend was already written, a legacy carved not by conquest but by resolve. A warning written not in words but in fire. The galaxy would remember forever the day Earth raised its planet-killer warship, and civilizations begged for mercy. And in that memory, humanity's name was etched into the stars, feared, respected, and never forgotten.